Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I will show you how to crochet Fuzzy Flower Appliques. These are super easy and very fun little appliques you can use on a child's headband. You can put them on a tote bag or on a scarf, and they're made in just 3 rounds, 2 rounds of the flower and then this fun fuzzy edge. For this project, you'll need some worsted weight yarn. I used Red Heart Super Saver in the perfect pink for this tutorial. And you'll also need some eyelash yarn. And I'm going to use this bright purple color. You'll also need a 6mm J crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a tapestry needle. So let's get started. I wanted to mention too, these flowers measure between 3 and 3.5 inches. Because of the fuzziness of this yarn, it can vary ever so slightly. With our worsted weight yarn, we're going to begin by putting a slip knot on our hook. To make a slip knot, wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your crochet hook, bring up the loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to chain 4. To make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, we're going to join in the farthest chain from the hook with a slip stitch. Insert the hook into the chain, bring up a loop. Bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. And we now have a ring that we'll be working all of our stitches into. If you notice there's a tail hanging here, just hold this tail along the edge as you work and it will weave that in as you go along, and that will save you a step at the end. Next, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to work 11 double crochets into the center of the ring. To make a double crochet, wrap yarn around the hook, insert it into the center of the ring, bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around the hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around the hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, we're going to close this round by working a slip stitch into that beginning chain 3 when we started this round to close the circle. So insert your hook, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. We now have our beginning circle, and what I like to do at this point is flip the circle over, and this tail that we wove in as we went along, you can pull that tight to close up that center gap. Trim the yarn tail, and then you can keep going and you don't have to worry about that tail anymore. So let's do the next round. For our next round, we're going to stick with our pink worsted weight yarn. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and in that first space, we're going to work 2 double crochets. See, this is the first space. I want to mention, in this round, we're going to be working into the spaces, not the stitches. The stitches are these little loops at the top of the double crochets from the previous row. The spaces are in between the posts, like that, okay? So in this first space, we're going to work 2 double crochets, then a slip stitch. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet. And then in the same space, a slip stitch. Just like that. So it'll look like that. Next, we're going to skip the next space. So skip that space, and in the space after that, we're going to work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and then a slip stitch, all in that same space. So we have our next petal. The reason we only worked 2 in this previous petal is because this chain 3 also counted as one of the double crochets. Okay, so skip the next space. In the space after that, work 3 double crochets and a slip stitch. So 1, 2 double crochet, 3 double crochet, and then a slip stitch, all in that same space. So we have our third petal. Skip the next space. In the space after that, do the same thing. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3, and a slip stitch, all in the same space once again. Okay, our next petal, skip the next space. In the space after that, work 3 double crochet, same exact thing we did before, 2, and 3. In the same space, work a slip stitch, and we have the next petal. Okay, skip the next space. In the space after that, we're going to work our last petal. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3, and in the same space, a slip stitch. Just like that. So when we're finished, we're going to have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petals. And then we're going to join where we began with a slip stitch to close the round. We can cut our yarn at this point and go ahead and fasten off. Okay? So the beginning part of our flower is complete. Now you can just keep your flower like this, or if you want to add this fuzzy edge, we're going to take our eyelash yarn and work the third and final round with the eyelash yarn to make it a fuzzy flower. Okay, to put the last round on with our eyelash yarn, you're going to tie this yarn onto any stitch. I like to not tie it where we left off because I'm going to weave the ends in as we go along. And if I have 2 ends, it might be a little bulky there. So I'm going to just back up a little bit. Any stitch you want, tie the eyelash yarn onto. Reach in with your crochet hook into the stitch. Bring the new yarn through, and then you can just tie it right on. If you have a preferred method of joining yarn, definitely feel free to do that as well. Eyelash yarn can be a little bit tricky to work with. So it helps to sometimes feel around for the stitches and just try and do the best you can. The good thing about it though is that it's very forgiving and it hides a lot. So if it's getting a little confusing where you've been, sometimes it can be very hard to see. It is forgiving and does hide a lot. So we're going to be working into the back loops only. When I created this flower, I tried it with working it into the full stitch, and it kind of covered up too many of the flowers and just looked like a circle. So to keep this petal definition, see how you can kind of see the petals still. We're going to be working into the back loops, okay? So working into the back loops is pretty easy. It's basically the same way as you're working into a regular stitch. But if you look at a stitch, let me grab my tapestry needle so you can see better. If you look at any stitch, you can see, I'm going to insert this needle just to show you. You can see that a stitch has 2 loops when you insert it. We're going to just go, this is the front loop, this is the back loop. We're going to work our stitches into just the back loops here. If you're completely unfamiliar with working into the back loops, I also have a video on how to work into the back loops only, if you want to practice a little bit first. I'm also going to hold the tails along the edges we work. That'll save us a step at the end, okay? So all you're going to do this edging is to work a single crochet into the back loops only all the way around the flower, okay? So insert the hook into the back loop of the first stitch, bring up a loop, and chain one, okay? Next we're going to go into the next one, the back loop only again, and work a single crochet, okay? Just like that, so you can still see that petal. It's not covering it up, but it's still adding a fun edge to it. Okay, insert the hook into the back loop only of the next stitch, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops on your hook. Okay, again, I'm holding this tail in as I go along. Insert your hook into the back loop only, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Insert your hook into the back loop only of the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. Okay, so I've just been working the eyelash yarn into the back loops only of our flower, and I'm just coming up to the end here. So when you're finished, when you get to the very end here, what you're going to do is the same way we joined the previous round. We're going to join with a slip stitch to close, and this is the time you'll have to kind of feel around in this eyelash yarn. Just look for a little spot to join. It can be very disguised by all these fuzzy edges, okay? So I joined with a slip stitch. I'm just going to cut the yarn, and I just wanted to mention, when you cut it, it does shed a little bit. And then you can just fasten off. So I did weave the other, got little shreds here. I did weave the other ends in as I went along and have since trimmed, but you'll still have one end at the end of your project. So just thread it the best you can with a tapestry needle. It might be a little tricky to do that. Just do the best you can. There we go. Okay, flip it over to the back, and then you're going to weave the eyelash yarn into just the eyelash yarn portion of your flower. Okay, you're not going to go into the pink because it'll stick out and it won't blend. So just weave it into the, in our case, purple area. Okay, come in one direction and then come in the other direction. Okay, and you can see how that just blends right in. Take your scissors and trim. And then your Fuzzy Flower Applique is complete. These are so fun to make. Okay, so that is how you crochet the Fuzzy Flower Applique. And I've done mine in lots of different colors. This was with a hot pink eyelash yarn. And this is all Red Heart Super Saver that I've used. You can use any yarn you like. And also, some of this novelty yarn comes beaded or with sequins. You can really get creative and very expressive with this. So that is how you crochet a Fuzzy Flower Applique. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the red subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again!